Good morning. Yeah, not funny, no. Okay, so for those of you who have no idea who I am, my name is Mason Powell. I am the teaching co-pastor here at the Bluff. And if you are a guest or new or anything like that, we are thrilled that you are here. We are honored that you are here. And we want you to know a couple things. I'm just going to rehash a little bit what Dave said. Next week, right after the service, we're going to have a newcomers lunch. For anyone who, like the past year, you've just started attending and you kind of want to know a little bit more about the Bluff and what makes us different than every other church in our community, that is a perfect opportunity where you can have lunch with me and Dave and just pick our brains and ask whatever questions you want to know about our lives or about the Bluff Church or what makes us unique. That's a perfect opportunity. We highly recommend you do that. As well as we do this thing where at the beginning of every message, we take a moment and we recognize particular areas of service within the church to show gratitude and appreciation for what they do. So this morning, please join with me in a round of applause for the teams that set up everything as well as tear down everything every single Sunday. That is one of the facets that makes us completely unique and different than any other church in our community is the fact that we have a team that every Sunday morning they get here at the crack of dawn to set up everything for you guys. And then as soon as the service is done, they hop in and they start tearing everything down. So that is a wonderful blessing that we have individuals like that who are committed to that teamwork and that vision of making this a reality for all of you every single Sunday. As well, let's give a round of applause to all those who came out yesterday to help out with Sleep in Heavenly Peace. I know that wasn't just our church thing, but our church had probably the most volunteers, and so let's give a round of applause for all of them. Yeah. So, transitioning this morning, I want to make a statement. I'm a firm believer that everyone loves a good story. I mean, it's kind of just human nature. We love stories. Stories make us laugh. They make us think of new places. They put us on the edge of our seats. I mean, who doesn't love a good story? And stories also help to define who we are as a people. For instance, in 1969, the story that really defined us as a people was that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. In 74, it was the fact that Nixon got impeached. In 77, it was that Star Wars came out. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Some of you are kind of surprised at how long ago that was, okay? In 1980, it was the Miracle on Ice. On 1989, it was the Berlin Wall falling down. In 1998, it was the hit sensation Seinfeld going off the air, all right? Yeah, I know some of you are sad about that one. Okay, so in 2001, it was the Twin Towers. And then later that year, we lose Pluto as a planet. Still grieving a little bit over that one. But don't worry, because that same year, Burger King came out with chicken fries, and that completely helped us get over Pluto, okay? In 2007, Netflix came out with their streaming service, and it changed how we watch TV forever. And then in 2012, Instagram came out, and we watched as the human race became fascinated with what is known as the duck face. Yeah. Stories shape us, but there was one story that came out in 2016. It was a movie, actually, that kind of re-changed our identity a little bit as a nation. I mean, this took brother against brother. Spouses were split over this. Me and my wife, to this day, we still argue over this because she won't admit I'm right about this. But in 2016, it was this big question that came out of who would win in a fight, Captain America or Iron Man? And the correct answer is, and always will be, Captain America. Wow. See, this is still splitting us as a nation, okay? Now, Marvel is a big franchise today. People love watching Marvel's movies because they're relatable. Because we get to watch a hero and a villain go in battle toe-to-toe, and we find things in the hero that we relate to or that we want to be. Some of us, maybe more than others, clearly I don't want to be like Captain America too much by these skinny little arms. But things like that where we find things that we relate to the hero. But the same is true with the villains, where we look at the villains and we think, I can relate to seeing that villain in my own life. Hopefully not fighting superhero villains, in which case we need to have another conversation after this. But we relate to stories that have heroes and villains, okay? It's one thing of when we watch a movie and it has a hero that we relate to, we suffer with them when they suffer. When they win, we win. When we get to watch Captain America beat up on Iron Man, we feel like we get to do the exact same thing. I mean, it's this wonderful thing that makes us relate to the story. And in the same way, when we watch stories with others, whether it's we read a book together or we hear someone tell a story or we watch a movie together, those who we do it with go on the exact same journey of roller coaster of emotions as us. And so we feel connected with them. We feel like we're a family with them. And so we get to cheer together when Captain America, of course, gets to beat up on Iron Man. The stories, yeah, I'm a big fan of Captain America, if you haven't noticed. Stories are crucial in how we communicate and how we relate to each other. And Jesus knew this, which is why oftentimes when he is trying to give this big truth, he tells a story. And the Gospels, they always call this a parable. Now, the Gospel of John, which is what we've been going through lately, doesn't really have a whole lot of parables like everyone else. But it does have one, and it's the one we're going to be looking at this morning in John chapter 10. So if you have a Bible, feel free to be turned there. It's going to be on the screen, so no worries if you don't, okay? Now, we're coming out of John chapter 10, where we got to see Jesus heal a man who was born blind. But the rest of chapter 9 was a bit controversial because Jesus says a lot of things about himself which were rather hard to hear and which people didn't really agree with. And so he's not on a good terms. And so we get to chapter 10, and he's trying to explain everything he's been trying to do through the Gospel of John, everything he's about, and he does it in the form of a story. Which brings us to verse 1 of chapter 10, which reads, "Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers." Now, I know that wasn't the most exciting story to read, especially when we are infatuated with like a Michael Bay Transformer movie with all these explosions, and there's none happening here. But there's a couple elements which we're going to highlight which make this really interesting, okay? And it's all right that we're a little bit confused because the original audience was confused as well, and Jesus is going to explain all that. But let's identify a few characters here. First off, we know who the villains are right away. They're the thieves and the robbers, okay? Nobody likes thieves and robbers, correct? All right, everyone is like, hey, I do not want to be a thief and robber. If you miss anything else I say for the rest of the day, remember this: don't be a thief or a robber, okay? Because we live in a place where we build up all the security against them. We have either an advanced home system or we have a newly purchased shotgun to solve that problem, all right? So if you try to be a thief and robber in southeast Missouri, it's not going to work well for you. So just erase that from your brain if that's your goal in life, okay? We also have another character, and it's the shepherd. And the shepherd is the hero, right? We want to be the shepherd because the shepherd is great. They protect people. They serve others. They're the hero of the story. I mean, who doesn't want to be the hero of the story? And then we have this other group, and they're the sheep, okay? And you might not know anything about sheep, but sheep are really dumb, okay? I mean, really dumb. Like, let's play a game of follow the leader, and we all fall off the cliff because we're just following the next one. Like, that's what a sheep is, okay? So let's play a game to help illustrate this. I'm going to list a variety of different situations that a sheep might experience, and if you think it will die facing that experience, I want you to shout out, "It dies." You got it? You guys think you get, okay, I think you guys are going to do awesome with this. Okay. So what happens if a sheep tries to leave the shepherd? Oh, come on, you guys can be louder than that. Let's try that again. What happens when a sheep tries to leave the shepherd? Okay, so what happens when a sheep tries to outsmart the thief and his trickery? What happens when a sheep tries to stand up against the brutality of a robber? What happens when a sheep stands up to a wolf? What happens when a sheep tries to lead the shepherd in a different direction? What happens when the sheep tries to be the shepherd? What happens when the sheep eats its vegetables? Yeah, some of you were paying attention. Okay, it does not die, in case you're wondering. Okay, vegetables are actually good for sheep, all right? That was just me trying to play a trick on you. Now, none of us want to be the sheep because the sheep are dumb, they're weak, they're helpless, okay? And we live in a world that's all about, hey, you've got to be a shepherd. You've got to be the hero. I mean, if you look up any self-help book out there about being a hero or anything like that, just any self-help book, you're going to find this big mantra that you have to be the hero of your day. In fact, if you were to Google, here's some of the top answers that pop up. The first one, be your type of hero. Or your user manual for being a hero. Or, ladies, you might be interested in buying this one for your husband. 7 ways to be her hero, the one your wife has been waiting for. Or the classic, be the hero of your story. How to be a hero parent. How to be a hero fighting hydras, a rather scary concept. And finally, my personal favorite, Star Wars saved my life. Be the hero in the adventure of your lifetime. Everybody wants to be a hero. There's nothing wrong with that. But what does Jesus say about that? Well, look at this, verse 7. So Jesus again said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to me. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." Okay, so Jesus is trying to explain the metaphor here, and he's claiming to be this door, okay? Which means that at the end of the night, all the sheep are gathered together in one single pen, and he's the entrance, okay? Meaning that any thief or wolf or robber, they have to go through him. And if we were to expand this metaphor a little bit and look at the sheep and think, well, this is the kingdom of God, then what Jesus is saying is that if you want to be part of the kingdom of God, if you want to be part of the family, you've got to go through him. Now, that's not a popular saying today because there's this big saying out there that says that all religions are the same, that all religions point to God, and that everyone's just going to go to God eventually, but that's not what Jesus said. Because Jesus, he's kind of famous for saying that he's the way and the truth and the life. And so he's kind of drawing a line in the sand saying if you want to come in and be part of God's family, then it has to go through him. And like I said, that's not a popular saying, and so that might make some people uncomfortable to hear, thinking, wait, you mean I have to go through Jesus in order to be part of God's family? I mean, is that fair? Is that right? Well, I'm not the one to answer that. And if that upsets you, then you got to kind of take it up with the big guy because he's the one who created the world and then made the rules and says you can only come in to be part of God's family if you go through Jesus. But he's the door, so then who's the shepherd, right? You might be thinking that, like, okay, so if Jesus is the door, then there's still this unvacant or this vacant spot of the shepherd. That could be any one of us, right? Like, that could be us. You could be the hero, right? Well, you might not like what Jesus says next, if you're thinking that. In verse 11, he says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." So notice that Jesus is talking about himself here. Not you, not me. He's not even talking about the church. He's saying that he is the good shepherd. And he's kind of alluding to what's going to be coming on later on in the Gospel of John when he's going to lay down his life for the world in order so he can save the world for all those who have faith in him and can be a part of his family. And we're going to be talking about that more in the weeks ahead as we work through John. But he's kind of hinting at that. He's kind of foreshadowing because he knows what's coming down the pipe for him. Now, you might be thinking, well, what about those who were the other religious leaders of that day? What about anyone who helps others or anyone else who's a minister or who's a Christian? Or is it possible that we could be shepherds as well? Once again, you might not like this next saying. Because here's how Jesus describes anyone who tries to replace him. Verse 12. "He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep." So it's a bit dramatic, and there's another layer of smack talk with Jesus saying here. But basically saying, look, everyone else compared to him is a phony. Everyone else that you might run to and trust more than him will eventually let you down. But not him, because he's the good shepherd. Because no one does what he does, like in verse 14, it says, "I am the good shepherd." Jesus talking again. He says, "I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. So not only does the good shepherd lay down his life for others, but he knows the sheep intimately to the point where he knows every little facet about them and their lives. No one else is like that. And so again, he says in verse 15, he says, just as the Father, and this is the parameters, the description of how well he knows the sheep. It says, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. So the sheep are the prize here, okay? I want you to understand that. The sheep are the prize because both sides want them. On one side, you got the villains who wanted to destroy the sheep. They want to scatter the sheep. They want to tear the sheep apart. And then on the other side, you got the shepherd who's wanting to protect the sheep. He's wanting to defend them, fight for them, even to the point that he lays down his life for them, for the sheep. The sheep are priceless to both sides. Now, here's the very safety and security of the sheep, therefore, depends on which side they choose. Will they go with the villains or will they go with the shepherd who wants to protect them? And the sheep is a lot bigger than just those who are listening to Jesus. It's so much more. It's a flock that extends beyond time, even to the place where it's like, hey, 500 years in the future, 500 years in the past, all across different denominations, because Jesus says in verse 16, he says, and I have other sheep that are not of this fold, meaning those who are listening to him, those who are believing him in that moment. It says, I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. So this flock, this gathering of sheep, is something that will extend beyond time, okay? So therefore, those who are in the flock will have more in common with those who are 500 years in the past or 500 years in the future, even though they might speak different languages, have different race or political views. They have more in common with each other than those who are right down the street from them who might speak the same language as them but aren't part of the flock. Like, that's what Jesus is saying, is that if you're part of the family of God, then it extends beyond everything else. All racial, ethnic boundaries that we think of, all political boundaries, is nothing compared to Jesus or being in family of Jesus, meaning that we as Christians, we have more in common with an Iranian believer than someone down the street of us who isn't a Christian. We have more in common with them in Christ than anything else. And once again, why this flock is following this good shepherd is because of verse 17. For this reason, the Father loves me because I lay down my life that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay down, and I have authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. So this is more than just laying down his life for the sheep. Because anyone could say, hey, I laid my life down for the sheep, and therefore I'm a shepherd. But what makes him unique is the fact that he knows his sheep, lays his life down, and then can decide to take it back up, which is another thing that he's foreshadowing that's coming in the future. That's what makes him different. That's what makes him incapable of losing this title of Good Shepherd. Now, why I'm a little bit excited about all this is because of this wonderful truth. You are not the hero of your story. Jesus is. Let me say that again. You are not the hero of your story. Jesus is. You might think you're all that in a bag of M&Ms, but the truth is you are not when compared to Jesus. Because Jesus was the one who was willing to lay down his life for those he knew. And he was willing to take it up again. That's not any of us. And it's okay that Jesus is better than us because he's the hero of the story, not us. Let me tell you why this is important to know. Because there's a subtle lie out there that's all about saying that you're in charge and you're the hero of your story. And if you were to believe that, then what's going to come later for you in the future is a lot of frustration, a lot of pain. You will look at the situations in your life and think, I'm the one who's supposed to solve this. And you will carry all this burden upon your back. And you will feel a heightened sense of anxiety and depression, thinking that you're constantly messing up, that you're carrying a weight that you can't possibly bear because the world says that you're the hero. And you will think, I can't show any vulnerability. I have to be tough. I can't have any problems. And then you will look at the actual problems you do have and you'll think, man, I got to solve this. And so situations in your family, you will think you're the one responsible to solve them. Or the anxiety or the weight you carry, you're the one who's supposed to carry it. And it's all because the world will say that you're supposed to be the hero of your own story. But to be a Christ follower means that you're admitting Jesus is the one who's the hero, not me. Meaning that this is a pressure that I don't have to carry. It's on him to carry because he can bear it. And I know I'm being vague because I don't know the exact situations for every single one of you, but I know there's a little bit of that aspect that you can relate to, of the feeling like everything is on your shoulders when it's not. Everything's on his shoulders. Because if you haven't figured it out already, you are not the shepherd, you're the sheep. Yes, you are the dumb, weak, helpless sheep if you are willing to admit that you love Jesus and that you're following him. Which means that you have a host of enemies out there who are going to try to tear you down. And if you try to be a dumb sheep saying, hey, I want to be the shepherd, I want to be in charge, it's not going to go well. Because you were not designed for that. Because the things in your life, there's a lie out there that says God will never give you more than you can carry. That's a lie. He will give you more than you can carry because he's trying to teach you to give it to him. Because he's the hero, not you. And I know I'm sounding harsh, but this is crucial because you will either dig yourself into a grave if you forget this, if you think it's all on me, when it's not. It's on him. Now, when I say this, I'm not saying that there aren't professions out there where there's heroes. Yeah, I believe those who work in schools or those who put on a badge or a uniform to protect others, to serve others, they are heroes to our community. And I'm not saying that they're not. What I'm saying is Jesus is a better hero because he's done what none of us else can do. And he loves you. And he's better than you, and that's okay because he loves you, he fights for you, he defends you. Here at the Bluff, that's what we want to be about. We're not here to say, look at us, we're the heroes, look what we did for our community. That's not what we're about. Yes, we do some good things for our community because we're following our shepherd. Because see, this is what it means to be a sheep, is that we're sticking close to our shepherd. Now, does that mean that we don't stand up to injustice? Does that mean that we're supposed to hide away in our tiny little caves and just cross our fingers and hope that everything's going to go away, and so we don't stand up to any bullies, we don't stand up to any problems, we don't try to fix the issues in our world and make our world a better place? No, of course not. Because that would be a ridiculous way to live. But instead we stick close to our shepherd because those are the places where we find him, in the dark and scary places. And he's calling for his sheep to join him. And amazingly, asking for his sheep to join in the work which he's doing. Which is what we want to be about here at the Bluff. We are not the hero. I'm not the hero. Dave is not the hero. You are not the hero of your story. Jesus is. Like I said, that's what we're about here at the Bluff. Which means we weep with those who weep. We rejoice with those who rejoice. We help carry each other's burdens. And along the way, when we find those who are outside of the flock, and I don't mean those in this building, I mean those outside of Christ, we tell them about how great our shepherd is, about how much he loves us, even when he knows everything about us, how much he fights for us, even when he knows everything about us, how much he defends us and even dies for us when he even knows everything about us. And you know what I mean when I say that. We are all about proclaiming that we are not the hero of our stories. Jesus is. And it's time we got that message right. So I'm going to pray here. And Stephanie and the band is going to come up and we're going to sing. And we're going to praise the God who is the hero of our story. So that the pressure is no longer on us. Because if it was, the world will destroy us. But Jesus has overcome the world. Meaning if we give it to him, it's on him. And so we're going to sing, we're going to worship that, and we're going to glorify that truth that Jesus is our hero so that we don't have to be. Now, during that time, I'm going to be in the back of the room, and so will a few of the elders, and we want you to know that if you're in a spot in your life where you need help, where you need some encouragement, or you just need someone to tell you what does it mean to have faith in Jesus, what does it mean to have a relationship with Jesus, then we want to gladly have that conversation with you. And we encourage you to come back and have that conversation with us. Or you can find us throughout the week. We have people drop in all the time. And me and Dave love that. Because we're here for you guys. We want to bolster you guys and empower you guys and do what we can so that you guys can go out in this community and live for Jesus in everything you do. So let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for who you are. Father, I cannot thank you enough for being like that. Because who you are is a God who loves us, even when we have plenty of excuses to think of that say that we should not be loved, you still love us. You still fight for us, you still defend us. Not because of anything we've ever done, because we can't earn your favor based on money or status in the community or what things we do. No, it's a joy to know it's purely because you are love and you desire to have a messy, silly, dysfunctional, and broken family. What a joy it is to know that we get to be part of that purely on the basis of having faith in who you are. So let us worship you in that light. Let us sing and praise your name, Father. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
When darkness tries